Welcome to Into the Blue, a weekly look behind the scenes of the Tampa Bay Lightning with reporters Gabby Shirley and Ben Pierce.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Into the Blue. I'm Gabby Shirley and I am finally reuniting, although virtually, with the one and only Ben Pierce. I have not seen this man in nearly 3 weeks. I was on the road with the team before the Four Nations break. Then there was the break. And now my co-host is recovering. Ben, you don't have to give us all the gory details, or you can, but what's been going on? How are you? Do you miss us as much as we miss you?
Yeah, I'm going absolutely nuts in my house. Let me tell you, man, I've been cooped up and it's been crazy. But last Monday, as we were getting ready for a crazy week of return to hockey and, enjoying this wonderful break that was supposed to be nice and peaceful, got some pretty intense stomach pains and had to leave a work meeting and had my wife come pick me up and take me to the hospital, and ended up as a 6-night stay in the lovely hotel of de luxury of the hospital, and had my Gall Bladder taken out. So yeah, it has been a week and a half. It's been a week. We'll put it that way. But so that is why I have not been around. We are in full recovery mode, but at least we are at that stage now. So happy to be back, and just happy to not be watching terrible 90s rom-coms in a hospital bed. I am so good on that. And Jell-O, I'll never eat Jell-O again, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sure. No more Jell-O for you. I think I know the answer to this, but living without a gallbladder, no big deal, right?
Yeah, it's something that I guess happens all the time. The best part was when the doctor was like, so the reason we weren't really concerned right away is this typically happens to pretty elderly women.
Perfect.
And I'm looking at him and I'm like, and of course my wife is like, well, that checks a box. And I was like, you gotta be, come on. But so yeah, that's they said it's pretty rare for a younger guy, but it's it's a little bit of an adjustment in the diet for a little bit, and hopefully they said at my age it shouldn't be a big deal. So we'll be all right. We're upward and onward.
Oh my gosh!
But it is an organ. Let me tell you. At first I'm like, I don't feel that bad after the surgery, and now I'm like, I feel like I got hit by a bus. But we're trucking onward. So here we go.
Okay, well, thank goodness we can do this podcast remotely because, right, Ben? No one needs to hear from Chris Kren again.
I tell you what, man. When I heard about that, I'm like, now we're talking. I'm like, this. Everybody's been asking for that, so I was happy to see that we were able to fulfill that wish because fans were pumped to hear from Hairboy. They were excited for that one. I thought that was hilarious. I don't remember last time I saw the words Hairboy. Probably since I got hired. So I was like, wow, I learned quite a bit.
Yeah, you're right. The fans love Hairboy. I think Hairboy loved jumping on, filling in, but he's back to his normal role. And Ben, we're so happy you're back.
Thank you.
All right. With that being said, you've had quite a time, negatively speaking, but the Tampa Bay Lightning are on quite a roll, winning their last 6 games in a row. Longest win streak of the season. The last time the Lightning won 6 straight games was February 22nd, 2021 to March 4th of 2021. So about this same time, but a few years ago. Ben, from what you've been seeing, I know you've been watching all the games. What stands out to you as far as how this Tampa Bay Lightning team has been able to win 6 straight?
Well, first off, let me just start with the guy in the cage, Vasi. I know we talk about how good he is all the time, but this guy, man, I remember at the start of the year when I first started and looking at just some of the stats and stuff from last year when he was hurt. And I'm coming in I can't wait to see what this guy looks like live. He's the best goalie in the NHL. And then you hear some of the questions in the pressers at the start of the year talking to Vasi, hey, how do you feel you can get past last year? And just the confidence that he had to be I'm not worried about it. Last year was tough, but I'm going to be better. And let's just put it this way. Last 7 games, Andrei Vasilevskiy is 6-0-1 with a .933 save percentage. He leads the NHL in February for wins and save percentage. The guy is vintage Vasi, and you need your goalie to be his best. And then when you throw that in with the fact that I think the other piece that's really impressed me is how often this year have you heard like the top six is unreal, but maybe we need some more from the bottom six? Those guys are pulling their weight, man.
Yeah.
Guys like Zemgus Girgensons, Cam Atkinson, Mikey Eyssimont, Luke Glendette, like up and down the list. Like Nick Paul's on a 4-game goal scoring streak, and he's been kind of in the top six, centering that third line a little bit. Like it has been a true team effort over the last 6 games. And I think if you're a coach, a fan, like that's got to be just super exciting because it has been a group effort.
Yeah, you read my mind as far as let's start with the goaltender. And Ben, right, this quote just made me laugh last night. We heard from Mikey Eyssimont after the win against the Edmonton Oilers. He was asked about Andrei Vasilevskiy, and he said, everyone says it, but it's really the truth. Like, he's the best goaltender in the world. And just the phrasing of it, like, yeah, you're right. Like, it just rolls off your tongue every time we ask anyone associated with the Tampa Bay Lightning about their goalie. But, like, yes, it is true, and he's showing it right now. He is on quite a roll. Ben, I didn't ask him or really anyone, but I was a little bit interested, and maybe you could say this about any position, but with the time off that Andrei Vasilevskiy had, like, I was wondering, is it easier or harder maybe for a goalie to get back into the groove? I know he was home here in Tampa over that Four Nations break. He referenced like riding his bike. So perhaps he really did just get a lot of rest.
Someone out there has a fantastic picture, by the way, of Vassy
for sure.
strolling on his
For
bike.
sure. I'm waiting for it to pop up on X. But so it really did sound like he just took it easy. And for him to just like make the switch like that, like, wow.
Well, and here's the thing with Vassy too, was like we talked so much about the fantastic story that was Brandon Halverson earning his contract a couple weeks ago. Matt Tompkins has been up here. Obviously, we're hoping that maybe today's news maybe is a good sign for JoJo that he's healthy. We'll wait and see on that. But like with all of this goalie stuff that's surrounded JoJo's injury, Vassy's had to play a lot.
Yeah.
And I would guess if you asked him, if you asked Coach John Cooper, like more than I think they probably anticipated at the start of January.
Yes.
But the nice thing about that is when you're a goalie like Vassy, like this is a guy who wants to be in the net. And sometimes when you're facing more pucks and you're getting the saves, you can't stop. You want to be in the net. Like in some cases, that 2-week break, you almost don't want it. Because you're like, I'm playing so well that like I just want to keep this run going. And a lot of times it's like, how do we just kind of bottle this up? And I think Vassy's done a good job of just stick to what I know, keep doing what I'm doing. And I think that's been a big part of it too. So I do think that those extra games down that stretch run there at the end of a busy January and the start of February, it probably helped him a little bit.
Yeah, and Andrei Vasilevskiy, right, Ben, has said multiple times, like, he likes a lot of shots on goal because it just keeps him engaged. He was asked about that again after the Edmonton Oilers game. Like, is it tricky for you because your team possessed the puck so much in your offensive zone? Like, you were just kind of sitting there waiting? And he said, yeah, it can kind of go either way because I don't really like to just be still in a game.
Right.
Okay, so yeah, and you mentioned team news and notes. Matt Tompkins reassigned to the Syracuse Crunch on Wednesday. So yes, perhaps a positive sign for Jonas Johansson, who has been dealing with a lower body injury. Ben, we've seen him out on the ice, just not in a game yet, but I think that means he's getting closer. So that's pretty exciting and probably beneficial for the Lightning, considering they don't have too many, but in the month of March, they do have 2 back-to-backs. Andrei Vasilevskiy, he did the most recent back-to-back, won both games, but perhaps they'll give him a bit of a break if Jonas Johansson is ready to roll.
Sure. And one more thing here on this 6-game win streak, something that I was digging up today for the old game notes. We love the game notes. The Tampa Bay Lightning are currently 6-0-1 in February. Now, Tampa Bay has finished a calendar month without a regulation loss only 3 times in franchise history. So, like, the month that they've had, and I know it's a little funky with that Four Nations break in the middle, but if they get a win or even an overtime loss tomorrow night against Calgary, like you're looking at literally one of the best and most productive months in franchise history. Like it sounds crazy to say out loud because it's so foggy with that break, but like Vassy's been so central in that, and with the streak, like they really are having a heck of a month here, and I don't know if enough people are talking about it around the league because it's been impressive to watch.
The game notes wizard
notes.
is back, folks. Ben, that's a great stat. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Okay, our third and final topic, which precedes a lot of questions that we got about the trade deadline. That's our topic, the trade deadline. It's coming up here. Ben, maybe you'll have some more insight. I don't really know where to go with this, considering perhaps you point to the Lightning wanting to get more offensive firepower in their bottom six, but the bottom six have been doing pretty well over this 6-game win streak. And then if you talk defense, like John Cooper, again, in the game, post-game against the Oilers, said defense is a big reason why we are winning these games. So the Lightning are looking good, but if you had to guess and or just your thoughts on anything the Lightning are potentially looking at as this trade deadline approaches, what do you think?
I think my answer is probably different than it was 6 weeks ago.
Okay.
Like we talked about the bottom six kind of really contributing, but I do think there's some room for another added offensive piece somewhere.
Okay.
Now, I don't know what exactly that means, but I think the big thing right now is when they're not scoring, what's their go-to move? It's we got to get Paulie up with Hags and C, right? And then it's basically play two lines the whole way down the stretch.
Yeah.
Now, if you can bring in even one piece, and it doesn't have to be some big multi-million-dollar fancy name, but a guy that can just add some offensive flow, and then you can pair that guy with, say, Nick Paul on the third line, and then maybe you have a chance to roll 3 lines instead of 2, so those top 6 aren't just getting dogged, late every single time you need a goal. And listen, you want your best players on the ice. I get that. But it just adds a little more flexibility maybe in your pairings, your combinations, maybe even the power play, that second power play unit that's actually been pretty good lately too. But it gives you more options. And especially when the playoffs come, a lot of times those top players kind of break even because they're so dynamic, but because the matchup game is so strong in the playoffs that you need some more push further down the lineup. And again, I think the bottom 6 has really, really stepped up for the Lightning here, especially over the 6-game stretch. So they don't have to make a move if they don't want to. I think it could help just to give them other options. But you look at the 7 defensemen they've got, I like that dynamic right now because they've got some physicality. They've got guys that can move the puck. I mean, how many times this season have we seen different lineups, with pairings on the D? They've really moved stuff around, and a lot of it's worked. So I think they like that group. I think the fascinating part about this team is if you're going to make this team better, look out, because we're seeing probably the best hockey we've seen from them over this 6-game stretch. And you think about just add more attack to that. Wow. And maybe on the other side of it, the other option is, do we go out and get someone like a Blake Coleman, right? Who is more of maybe a shutdown player right now, or I would even say when they traded for Nick Paul, right? It was more of a depth defensive guy, but we think there's another aspect to his game that maybe we haven't unlocked. And Julian Breezebois kind of made that comment when he made his mid-season presser too. We're always looking for guys to see maybe if we can't unlock that next step. So we'll see, but it's exciting. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but trade deadline's so fun, man. I can't wait.
Ben, I just feel anxious. You would think there was a possibility that I was getting traded.
Wow.
I
pack it up.
Stop. But I genuinely love, respect, whatever you want to call it, everyone in that Tampa Bay Lightning locker room. I feel like they have a really good chemistry amongst the players, and perhaps you could point to that extending back years and years and years. That's really nothing new, but if hopefully it's an ad, if we have to trade someone, I don't like it. I don't like it. It's exciting, but I just don't like it.
Well, and I think too, and I probably should have mentioned this, but in my mind, I'm thinking with this group, ideally you're not taking away a roster player in one of those trades, right? It's probably futures, and I'm saying that strictly because a lot of times that's where these playoff teams are aiming, right? It's let's try to extend our current window.
Right.
And this group is so close that I don't think you'd want to get rid of, quite frankly, anybody in that room. Like you said, we get to develop relationships with these guys. They're fantastic guys, but there's room, I think, for another body without necessarily removing somebody from the team. And like they've talked so much about the cap gymnastics and everything they've been doing with the math and crunching numbers. I just think it's a matter of maybe how do we add without removing? And I think everybody would be obviously stoked with that possibility.
All right. Well, that is something we will be certainly keeping an eye on. With that, Ben, let's get to a question sort of kind of about the trade deadline in our Blue Line segment. Thank you, everyone who submitted questions on X. Of course, you can always call us, 813-301-6749. All right. So this question is from T because I don't know the username. I could not pronounce it, Ben, for the life of me. Since the trade deadline is coming up, how do NHL insiders get information from teams? In Tampa's case, does JBB, Julien Brisebois / management, willingly give info, or does it come from other teams talking about another team inquiring about a player? And have you ever been asked for info? Ben, I didn't do any research on this. I have a vague idea, but I wanted to ask you first if you have thoughts on how the insiders, they're not necessarily us because we're never giving away Tampa Bay Lightning info before it's made public, but how do insiders get that inside info?
Well, you're the insider, right? Like Gabby,
I am not.
Gabby Shirley, Tampa Bay Lightning insider with like 4 R's at the end, insider. Wow. I like it even says hi Gabby to start the question. Like this person knows you're the insider.
No.
But a lot of it truly is like these guys, like you're talking like the Elliot Friedmans, the Frank Saravallis, like these guys are digging. I mean, they're talking to everybody. It like other teams, and they've got contacts for sure inside the league. But I think one thing that maybe people don't realize is, especially when players aren't happy in a situation, their agents are quick to reach out.
Boom. That was
to
it.
the insiders, right? Like, because they want maybe to push something along to help their guy. And so, like we've had some crazy trades already this season in the NHL, just across the league, like big name guys moving, trading spots. And like a lot of that started with, I'm hearing so-and-so would be open to a new change of scenery. And where do you think that's coming from, right? Like that is an internal source. And by internal, it's not necessarily the team. It's likely the player's agent saying, correct, he's not getting enough minutes. We got to get him a fresh start. And sometimes too, like the other thing is, if a player especially has like a no movement clause or a no trade clause, sometimes it's a mutual thing. Like the player says, I'm not getting enough. My contract might be too much for what I'm giving you. Like, can we find something mutually? And then it's the agent works, the general management team works like that. Then it's kind of a team effort to see see what you can find. We'll see what we can find. But it like a lot of that really is like they're talking to anybody and everybody that they can find to kind of do that. And I think something that people forget is if they're putting it out there and these are the true, like bona fide insiders, they're verifying this information, right? Like it's not like they're just hearing something and then hitting tweet.
Yep.
I don't know if I can still call that tweeting, but they're hitting the publish button. I think it's called now. Jesus. But but it is a lot easier. Like for us, Gabby, coming from the journalism world, like if you have something like that, it's so much easier to go to a team or a coach or a player and say, hey, I was told this. Can you verify? Is that accurate? And maybe, then it's easier to get you can't, are you just making that up, right? Like if you come in with saying like, listen, I've got it on record, like it just makes that easier. So a lot of times, but they're asking literally everybody.
Yes, 100%. Ben, that was a great answer. That's what I was going to point to. Agents, just other people connected to the player that's not necessarily a team. And the last part of this question from T, have you ever been asked for info? Personally, Ben, not really. And perhaps like people know that myself, we work for the Tampa Bay Lightning, so we are not in a position to be dishing out info. And yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. I am a bad liar and B, like a paranoid person. So I would never be one to just give someone something. I couldn't do it. I couldn't live with myself.
Like we just kind of talked about it. Like, have you ever been asked for info? And they'd be like, what do you think of so-and-so? And I think you and I both would be like, love him. We love him. Like he's here forever, please. Right? Like we it's good luck with that. We have so much fun just getting to know the guys and talk to them and we appreciate everybody in that room. So good luck with that. You ain't getting anything out of us.
That is correct. All right, Ben, you want to read this second question from Nancy?
Yeah, Nancy with a good one here. So why do the Crunch players who are called up wear different jersey numbers? For example, she points to Gage Gonsalves, who wears number 39 with the Crunch, but 93 with the Lightning. Nancy said she's noticed it with others that have been called up as well. So, Gabby, why do the Crunch players who are called up sometimes wear different jersey numbers?
Okay, so, Ben, I was stumped by this question. It was really bothering me. Nancy, it was a good one. However, I just forgot, and I feel kind of bad about it. So, Gage Gonsalves, as you said, 93 with the Tampa Bay Lightning, 39 with the Crunch. There's not a number 39 on the Lightning because that would be the main reason why he would not be wearing that number. Obviously, veterans get priority on what numbers they have. You can't have two of the same number on the same team. But I went back. Gage Gonsalves made his NHL debut last season in January. There was not a 39 on the roster that I looked at. But to start the season last year, Waltteri Merila was wearing number 39. So that explains why Gage is not wearing it now. Waltteri Merila wore it to start the season last year. I don't believe he was playing. He might have been sent down when Gage made his NHL debut last season in January, but Merila did come back up later in January. So again, that's why he didn't have 39. I consulted our lovely equipment staff who had to remind me of Waltteri Merila. Again, that made
what a name drop. You said that, I was like, wow, yeah, okay.
Right? But I had to consult our equipment staff. They reminded me, like I said. And then I also learned that I'm reading this text really quick to make sure I get it correct.
Research.
The numbers have to be submitted by July 15th of each year. So although Merila, I don't believe, was going to be a part of our team this coming season, Gage Gonsalves didn't know if he was going to be part of the team as he only skated in 2 games last season. So perhaps he didn't really feel comfortable requesting a jersey number. And right at that point, he was already 93. I don't even know if he was really asked, but our equipment staff, they try to get close to whatever number you're wearing. So they just flipped the numbers and gave him 93 instead of 39 when 39 was unavailable. Ben, I took it one step further. Poor Gage Gonsalves. He is off today, but I sent him a message just to double
You
check,
did not.
make
Wow.
sure I wasn't missing
Wow.
anything. And he's so lovely. He did get back to me.
That's a great player to have to send an off-day message to.
He's just one of the coolest guys. But I said to him, do you have any thought on potentially switching your number in the future? Like, is 93 it? Because now you've skated in however many games in that number, or do you like 39? And he said, I would like to switch to 39 at some point. My grandpa was born in 39, so it holds some value with me. I had no idea. That's such an awesome connection and reason to want to wear that number.
Okay,
so
wow.
perhaps in the future, he might make the switch.
We're going to blame it on all of the pain medication from the last week, but I'm getting a little teary-eyed there. That was so unexpected for 39. Wow.
Right?
That is beautiful. Wow. I was waiting for wow, that is so good. Now I wanted to wear 39. No offense, Gage. You look great 93 too, but okay. I think too, one of the things that's been talked about on the 32 Thoughts podcast is that a lot of times guys submit multiple numbers, like you said, and then they try to...
that.
So, and I don't know if this is per team, so maybe different teams do it differently, but one of the things they said, I believe it was on in one of their off-season pods, was that they submit 3 numbers in case one's taken.
Okay.
Right? So then it's like, well, if you can't get your first, what's your second? If you can't get your second, what's your third? So maybe that's a story I'm going to have to look up and maybe do in the future on how jersey numbers work in Tampa Bay. So appreciate that. But, it's funny, too, because these things do matter. I know there's some guys who are like, I don't know, it was available, so I took it. But there are some people who are very particular about, I have to have one number in that jersey. I have to have a 3, or I have to have some semblance of this year, yada, yada. So that's an interesting one. I wouldn't, like you said, the Gonsalves 39 for his grandfather's birth year, I would have never guessed that. So that's a great answer and a fantastic question. So we appreciate your guys' questions. That's a really good one.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yes. Again, Nancy, thank you for the question. Credit to our lovely equipment staff for helping me remember that 39 was taken when Gage made his NHL debut. And thanks to Gage for getting back to me on why 39 is important to him. Okay. I think it's time for us to move on to, again, potentially everyone's favorite segment, our plus minus segment. I mean, Ben, perhaps everyone can guess your minus, but we're not going to get there. We're going to start with your plus. Is there a plus from the week that you've had? You start us off.
Okay, well, I recently had my father as my plus, but I should say my father is here with me this week just to be an extra set of hands and help out because Molly's still working. So he's been here, which has been great, but I do have a different plus.
Okay, let's hear it.
So sorry, Steve-O. While in the hospital, Mr. Briesman, our boss, sent me a message, and I was like, it's a video. And I'm like, what is going on? And I got a get well message from Elliot Friedman from the previously mentioned 32 Thoughts podcast. And if you know anything about me, that is crazy cool for me. Like, that's a guy that I grew up looking up to and wanted to be. And as a young journalist, like, that was the guy that I really wanted to be. And I said, I think on my Block Party podcast, like, if you could be one person for a day, who would it be? And I said Elliot Friedman, because just I can't imagine what that guy's phone looks like on a typical day. But I just said, like, it'd be so fun to be, so in tuned and just to have that much knowledge floating around. In typical Frege manner, he absolutely bombed himself in the message and said that no matter how I looked, I might look better than he does. So I just love that he's always ragging on himself and he's got a good sense of humor. But that was pretty cool, was to get a message from somebody that I really, really look up to. So it's definitely made me smile and laugh, which still hurts, by the way. So thanks for each. Appreciate that. But it was a pretty cool surprise. And I know Breeze had a lot to do with it. So it was a pretty cool moment in an otherwise tough week.
Ben, that is such a good plus, and I think that speaks to just the family atmosphere that exists with the Tampa Bay Lightning organization.
Absolutely.
I know I say it all the time, but like, that's what we do for each other. So that was one awesome that Brian Briesman, whoever even thought of that idea, and then they were able to get it done. And also to Elliot Friedman. We all know him mainly from his podcast and what he does for the league. But Ben, I've met him a few times here and there, overlapping on different games, and he is as nice in person as you would expect him to be. So that's really cool.
Yeah, that's sweet. And my wife loved the flowers too from the squad. So she was enjoying smelling those while I was wincing in pain. So appreciate the squad here in Tampa Bay too. It's been a crazy week, and I couldn't have gotten through it without all of you. So appreciate the team. So, yeah. But on for my dramatics, Gabby. What is your plus this week?
My plus, although it came about under not great circumstances, Paul Kennedy was unavailable to host, run the show for the Tampa Bay Lightning's first game back from that Four Nations break. That game was on Sunday against the Seattle Kraken. We all know and love Paul Kennedy for the person he is, the talent that he has, what he brings to each and every game. Again, he was unable to be there at that game. He was not on vacation, I can tell you that. So I was asked to fill in. And Ben, this would not have been my plus even 3 seconds before the start of that pregame show, because I was a nervous wreck. If anyone looked at me too long, like, I was going to cry, because I was feeling rather overwhelmed. It is a lot more prep than I think I even realized, and I'm pretty familiar with the show and with what Paul Kennedy does, but I even have a greater appreciation and respect for, like I said, all the talent that he brings. But I did it. Pre-game show, intermissions, post-game show. I was by no means perfect or even good, but I would say, Ben, that there were not any catastrophic moments. So I managed to, I guess, fake it and get through it. I also need to do a better job, even just in my regular job interviewing players. I need to do a better job of consistently going back and watching them to make sure, like, that looked good. Ooh, let's not do that next time, just to improve. I managed to suck it up and look back at the tape, Ben, and I felt even better about myself than I did after the close of that show. Like, I think I did okay. Again, not good, not great. but there were no catastrophic moments, and we made it through. So I'm going to say that was a plus, a big
That's
win
a great
for me.
plus. And I was going to give you a hard time there because for your first time, I was like, let me tell you, I had just gotten home from the hospital and I'm turning on the TV to watch this game. And all of a sudden I'm like, that's Gabby Shirley. I'm like, holy smokes. And I like, you were fantastic. It's like for your first show, if you were watching this from outside the market, if you would have come in and watched, you would have assumed that this was the typical person on the desk. Like I know it's so much harder when it's yourself, but I was super impressed with your first, I know we always want to be better, but it was a fantastic debut. And,
Thank you.
You can say whatever you want about only up from here, whatever, but I was impressed. So, especially because it was kind of last minute, right? Like it wasn't like I was impressed.
Couple days notice. So
right.
Again, but even then, and right, Ben, I feel like a big part of having success in whatever you do is just being overly prepared. So I was consistently like chipping away, but then like day of, I'm like, oh my gosh, like how did I not think to do this 3 days ago?
Yeah.
So yeah, it all, like I said, it just turned into like, I should have realized, but I didn't realize how much.
Okay, how many pages in the binder? How many pages in the binder?
I had packets. And perhaps, again, hopefully you weren't distracted by my pages being all over that desk. But I had packets and scripts and different things everywhere.
For those of you listening to the podcast, maybe some inside information here on Gabby Shirley, but she has a binder instead of like a traditional notebook that she carries around. Yes. And like the notes for one singular practice or game sometimes are multiple pages. So I'm imagining like for a full show, I can only imagine. So, but you were great. So don't worry too much about it. I'm glad to hear that you looked back and were happier than you thought you'd be. So it was a great surprise, and the fans were stoked. Every time I went on my Twitter, all I could see was, "Oh my God, Gabby Shirley, I love her." I'm like, yes, I agree. All right.
Thank you, Ben. Yeah, I only heard good things, which really meant a lot from all of the Tampa Bay Lightning fans, as well as friends that I have with the organization and outside of it. So that was really nice to hear. And yeah, I'm still kind of riding the high of it. I'm
glad you had fun.
To normal duties come the game on Thursday, but it was a good run for Sunday.
Yeah, it was fun to watch. So good job.
Thank you. Okay, hit us with your minus.
Okay. You guys are going to be shocked to hear my minus this week is the Gall Bladder. I had to admit, like, maybe I should have known what exactly the Gall Bladder does before last week, but I wasn't, like, super in tune. Like, maybe that's something that I just didn't pay attention to because I'm like, it's a tiny little organ in your stomach. That's about all I knew. Let me tell you, man, I know what the Gall Bladder does now. It's been a week. So I cannot wait to be healed and hopefully eat some bacon, and we'll see how that goes first time around. But that damn gallbladder, like that. My minus is it's the gallbladder. So yep. I'll leave it at that. But that is for sure my minus this week.
Perfect. My minus, again, great week. So I really had to think about this one. Ben, I sound like a broken record. I don't think I've said it on this podcast, but I know you've heard me say it. Our lovely friend and coworker, Stephen Buck, hears me say it daily. I've talked to Chris Krenn about it. I've talked to Brian Briesman about it. Again, I'm a broken record. But a lot of cool things this week for myself personally. I mentioned hosting, filling in for Paul Kennedy. We had an event that we've had basically for every season for a while now. I'm forgetting exactly when it started, but it's called Ladies Lightning U, Ben, and it is women who love the team, love the sport. They come to the arena, and there's a couple different stations, and they go around and learn about the game. They get to talk to players. I was able to host a station with Brian Engblom, our color analyst. Him and I just sat up there, and we took questions and shared stories. I didn't think it was going to be a drag by any means, but like I was genuinely crying, laughing. I so enjoyed doing that with Brian Engblom first and foremost, but all the questions came from the lovely ladies that were there. So I had so much fun. With that being said, just a couple of things, Ben, outside of my comfort zone of just games. I'm like, I need a post about this on social media. Like, let's put it up on Instagram and X and photos and maybe some videos. Like, oh my gosh, let's do it. I'm so old. Like, I don't know how to do it. I don't know what's going to do well. I don't know what's going to look good or bad. And like, I just get into like a mental state of like, I'm just stuck. I'm just stuck here and I'm not going to do anything. That's not the case. I'm going to post some stuff. But my minus is just being so clueless. Like, I thought I had a good grasp on social media life. I don't. And I'm trying to get better. So my minus is just being old and bad at social media. I went into our social media manager's office. I love this girl so much. Her name is Sarah. 10 times yesterday being like, all right, can you help me with this? Like, what do you think of this? Like, are you sure? Are you really sure? Like, I'm a disaster. I'm an absolute disaster.
That is a great minus because I like, as you're talking, I'm like, this all sounds so good. Like, where's the minus? And then when you brought it up, I'm like, I know exactly where this is going.
Then I'm going to add my like minus 1.1 here, like the second tidbit of this, that like, I don't actually like being like, hey, can you take my photo? Like, I post enough, so I do it. But I don't know. Sometimes it's just, I'm waiting for a bench interview with a player pregame. So like there's cameras and photos out anyways. It's just not that big of a deal. I don't know. But for Paul Kennedy at the end of the show, because again, I was too nervous in the beginning. And then for Ladies Lightning You, I'm getting that correct. I did ask people around to take some photos, take some videos, if you don't mind. And God love them, they did it. But
to get a picture of you with Thunderbug?
Hosting, the gentleman sent me like a zip drive email situation. And within like 5 seconds of me like trying to figure out what we had here, it said like my time expired and like I couldn't access anything anymore. And like, I don't want to bother him again. And then for Ladies Lightning You, like I thought I asked for videos, but I only got photo. Like, so I just can't get it right. I can't get it right.
I love that. Like,
I'm trying and I'm failing.
Okay, first off, you are not old. Chill out with that. I'm not that far behind you. I will say that is a good minus. I wasn't prepared for it, but I will give you the minus. Yeah. That's pretty solid.
It's a solid minus. Like, I'm just in one right now. But
okay, that's fair. And it's very on brand. I didn't know where it was going, and then all of a sudden I was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, you've heard it before.
Okay. That's fair.
Along those same lines of me just being way in over my head, question corner segment. I asked a question last week. We planned to blame this on Chris Kren, but it was my question. I asked a question last week that we don't actually have the answer to yet. So with that being said, you can't guess for that question anymore, but we're going to have 2 winners next week. We're just going to move on from the old question, get to the new question after Ben Pierce reads rules and regs. Does he have them right there?
Gabby, do you know who you're talking to? Here we go. Each Thursday morning during the 2024-2025 Tampa Bay Lightning regular season, as the Into the Blue podcast is released, we're giving you a chance to win an autographed puck from a Lightning player. During the show, we will pose a statistical question related to the subsequent week's upcoming games, and you will have until Sunday night of that week to get your guess in as to what the correct answer will be. You can respond to our post on X from the Bolts Radio account, or you can email radio@tampabaylightning.com. We will pick one winner at random from all the correct entries. No purchase or payment is necessary, and restrictions will apply. You can visit tampabaylightning.com/intotheblue-rules for full rules, prize description, odds, and other info, and that is void where prohibited.
Boom. Okay, new question. Ryan McDonagh currently has the best plus-minus in the league at plus 35, which is insane. From the moment this podcast drops on Thursday morning until we return, the Tampa Bay Lightning will have played 4 games. So after those 4 games, what will Ryan McDonagh's plus minus be?
I like it. That's a good one.
Is that a good one?
I like it. I saw it and
it just hit me. Ben, I was going to make you think of this question this week, and then I was like, oh my God, wait, I have it.
Well, hey, I like it too because, don't look now, but Mr. McDonagh is approaching a pretty significant milestone. 1,000 NHL. I'm just saying, there's something coming up here. So
we're all about looking ahead on this podcast, and that's a good one.
I think we're going to be talking a lot about Mr. McDonough here in the future. So, and you know what? Like, the impact he's had in his return, it's everybody's been stoked to have him back from the locker room to the fans. So, hopefully that number is quite high and this winning streak keeps on rolling. And thanks everybody for all the kind words while I was out. And hopefully more wins are on the way.
We're going to end it right there. That was great. Ben, we've missed you. Welcome back.
All right, see you in a bit.
Follow the Lightning Audio Network on social media @Bolts Radio. And don't forget to hit subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode of Into the Blue.